The following program has been made possible by the friends and partners of Christ for All Nations.
My name is Daniel Kalenda. I'm a missionary evangelist who preaches to millions each year alongside evangelist Reinhard Bonnke in Africa and across the world. At our gospel outreaches, we are witnessing an outpouring of the Holy Spirit that is winning astonishing numbers of people to Christ, one soul at a time. The Lord is also divinely healing broken bodies and restoring lives to the glory of God Almighty. Now, I want to invite you to hear the gospel, see and experience God's miraculous touch, and discover the mission of Christ for All Nations. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another broadcast of Christ for All Nations. I'm your host, Evangelist Daniel Kalenda, and I cannot wait to share some of these things with you today. Of course, you've seen, just in that opener, you saw some of those shots of those massive crowds. You know, we have seen up to 1.6 million people gather on one field at one time to hear the gospel. And if you're familiar with the ministry of Christ for All Nations, you probably have heard that since 1987, we have seen nearly 74 million people come to Christ through those massive open-air evangelistic campaigns in Africa. What you probably don't realize is that Evangelist Bonnke and myself, who are the preachers, are only one link in a very long chain that makes these crusades possible. And today I'm going to introduce you to a man who has been working behind the scenes for over 30 years, organizing the logistics and driving the trucks to these different cities where the crusades are happening. And literally, without the work that he and his colleagues are doing, the ministry of Christ for All Nations could not have reaped the massive harvest that it has reaped. I'm going to introduce you to him, and you're going to hear about some of his amazing, heroic adventures and exploits for the gospel. But before we do that, I want to talk to my friends who are in North America, in the United States and in Canada, and I want to tell you something amazing that's about to happen right in your backyard. Evangelist Reinhard Bonnke has received a word from the Lord to begin traveling across North America, preaching the gospel and holding mass evangelistic campaigns from stadium to stadium, the same way that we've seen it happening in Africa. And I believe that we are standing on the threshold of a great move of salvation and of evangelism and of the Holy Spirit in America. And it's coming soon to a city near you, and I want you to be involved. Here's how you can join.
Hello, join me in Atlanta for the Reinhard Bonnke Gospel Crusade on March 5th and 6th, 2016 at the Phillips Arena in downtown Atlanta. It is a totally free event, and I'm asking that all believers will bring the lost. We cannot make this crusade a success without your help. Visit our website and sign up now.
We are all guilty, and we all need salvation. Today is your day of salvation.
All hail the power of Jesus' name!
So what we have seen happening in Africa is going to begin happening in America, and actually it's already begun. So I look forward to seeing you at one of our gospel crusades right here in North America. Now, when I was just recently in Cameroon for our last gospel crusade in Africa, I sat down with a man named Winfried Wendland, who is a German technician and engineer who has been working behind the scenes in the ministry of Christ for All Nations for more than 30 years. This man has experienced some of the most amazing adventures for the sake of the gospel of anyone that I've ever met in my whole life. You know what I love about Winfried is that he's not really a preacher. He's not an evangelist. He is a man who possesses some very blue-collar skills, and yet he has been able to use those skills as a strategic part of this ministry, and he has honestly been one of the major strategic links in the chain that has seen nearly 74 million people come to Christ since 1987. And now you're going to hear some of his side of the story from behind the scenes. Let's go to Cameroon and let's hear from my guest today, Winfried Ventland. I'm here with Winfried Ventland in the city of Douala in the West African country of Cameroon. And we're here this week for a gospel crusade. This is the very first night. And I'm so excited to be able to talk to Winnie about his brand new book that's coming out, By Life or By Death, that chronicles decades of work here in Africa with the Christ for All Nations team, working behind the scenes. You know, many people, when they think of the ministry of Christ for All Nations, they think of the preachers standing on the platform like Evangelist Bonke and more recently myself. But the truth is that behind the scenes, there is a team of men who are amazing heroes of the faith that have been working so hard to make this possible. And without them, it would never have happened. This harvest could never have come in. And at the head of that team is Winfried Ventland. Winnie, thank you so much for being willing to talk to me today.
Yes.
So we are actually sitting here on top of one of these containers. Just tell me what this is that we're sitting on.
Yeah, we have two of these big containers in West Africa where we transport all our equipment. The platform mainly, the sound speakers, the sound system, the towers and the lights and all the cables, generators, what it all contains to make the crusade happening wherever we go. We don't need anything from anybody. We have everything ourselves.
So we're not dependent on anyone from the outside.
We are independent wherever we go in all the countries we have been. That's very good and very sufficient.
So now to get here for this crusade, you had to drive from where? From Lagos?
We came from Lagos, and that is about a drive for 1,300 kilometers, roughly 900 miles, and we took about 9 days. Because the road sometimes is not so good, we went right through the forest, the jungle of Cameroon, and we had to stay a little bit at the border to clear the papers and the entry.
Yeah, I've been watching your posts on Facebook for it seems like the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
And the pictures of the terrain and the roads. It's amazing what you guys do. Now tell me, who are the other members of your team?
Yeah, we have 3 other members which are coming from Germany and South Africa, and then we have some members from Nigeria and Ghana sometimes also. So we are together 8 people who are traveling from any country to any destination where we have the crusade. Yeah. So we are long together. Mostly the longest one with me is already 25 years with me, and the nearest one is about 6-7 years.
Amazing. And now you have experienced every kind of imaginable adventure in Africa. I mean, you've been kidnapped,
yes.
You've been held for ransom, yes. You've been captured by child soldiers. The truck was sunk to the bottom of a river. Was it this one?
Yes.
Was it this container?
It was, no, the other container, this one.
This one across the way here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at a container that was on the bottom of a river. Just tell me about that very quickly.
Yes, that was some years ago when we traveled from Lagos to Conakry, Guinea. And we had to cross over a river with a ferry. So there was something wrong with the ferry, then the ferry sank, and we went together with the ferry down to the river bottom, where I was in the cabin, and it was 8 meters down. So that was very difficult to come out of the cabin. With my last breath, actually I managed then to come out. And at the end, it took us 5 weeks to get the truck out, the trailer out. The main thing was, the miracle actually was that all things are still working today. The same trailer we are driving today, which was in the river for 5 weeks, we cleared and cleaned up everything and it's still working.
It's not only a miracle, but it's an indication of the kind of stewardship that this team has. This equipment that we're looking at here, some of this equipment has been working for decades.
Yes.
Isn't that true?
Yes. Some of them, it's working like this platform I took from South Africa. So that is about 36 years ago, and it's still the same. We just changed the wood on top, but the steel structure is all the same what we have done 36 years ago.
And we just keep maintaining it and replacing the old parts,
yes.
but using it for the glory of God.
Yes.
You know, for that story you told me, didn't you have a dream?
Yes.
As well?
I was in Lagos to have that crusade coming on in Conakry, I dreamt that night in my dream a man appeared and he said, we will lose everything, but my life got saved. And the next day I had the same dream. So I phoned Pastor Bonke, and the only thing he said, okay, you still be alive. So I will go and pray and the equipment we will replace. So we went, and I nearly forgot because it was a long journey. So after 5 weeks, we reached that river, and that night before we crossed the river, I had the same dream. So I thought maybe it's a problem coming on. So we offloaded some of the equipment from the container to make it lighter, to come easier over the ferry. But at the end, you know what's happening? Most of the things went down. Some things we got offloaded so we could have the crusade. After the crusade finished, we came back to the river, pulled the truck out, put the equipment back, and we are still going on.
Sometimes you guys have to even build bridges
Yes.
to drive across, isn't that true?
Bridges, any kind. Broken bridges, sometimes we have wood bridges we had to fix up. We cut trees, we put it underneath as pillars to strengthen it. Then we go over. One of the bridges, our last trailer, I made it over. It was just shaking, a little bit breaking. My second one broke in, but he managed to come out. So we left the bridge behind, broken, and we continued our journey. We were happy that we were not sunk in the river again.
Amazing. Now your book is called By Life or By Death,
Yes.
which is actually from a statement that the Apostle Paul made, where he said that whether by life or by death, his desire was to glorify God in his body. And I think it's a perfect title because that seems to be your perspective. You risk your life all the time for the sake of the gospel. You're not doing it for recognition. You're not doing it for glory. Why do you do it? Why are you willing to risk your life?
Some people ask me sometimes, you don't fear anything what will come up? I said, no. If you would fear, you are not capable to do it because there are so many challenges waiting for you. Not only rivers or soldiers or war or any other challenges which come, you can lose your life anytime. And if you are not ready to die, then you will grip with fear and you don't know what to do. But I said to myself, and I think that's the grace of God also, if I die, where am I going? I'm going to heaven. So that is where I'm aiming to. So, and I said at the end, it's not so easy to die. Because in my life now, in these 36 years I'm with CFAN, I had 12 incidents, which I call back, where I could easily lose my life. One is the river, one is on an aeroplane who came down, the other one was in the war, the other one was 2 times hostage taken, they wanted to kill me, so and on and on. Some you got sick, malaria, I had many times malaria. Sometimes the doctor gave me up, they told my wife, this night he will die. But that night, after 10 days on a drip, and the doctor couldn't help me, that night Jesus healed me. Next day, I went up, was totally healed, sit in the truck and drove them home.
It's amazing. What do you say to somebody who says, you know, I want to serve the Lord. I want to be used by God to win people to Jesus, but I'm not called to be a preacher. I'm not called to stand on the platform and give sermons. How would you encourage them as somebody who has been working behind the scenes all these years and made such a big contribution?
Yeah, the first thing is you have to have a determination. You know that God called you to this ministry, anyone you are doing. I had many visitors who wanted to join me, to come along. I had good ones like Martin, who came along and he stayed with me now for 27 years. I had others, he came once, the one trip to the destination, got sick and many things happened. He took the plane, flew home. He said, you know, that is not for me. So I know somebody like it, but when they see it and have the problem coming to them, then they feel this is not for me. Others, they feel it is good and they stay, and that is where you trust the Lord, what calling you have on your life. And I had one calling in my life. I knew this is the one God called me to. Whether I stick to it, whether I die, whether I live for long or short, that doesn't matter for me.
What do you hope that your book will accomplish when someone reads it? What do you hope they'll take away from that?
I think if they read the book, you know, I'm an ordinary man. When I was 25 and I joined CFAN, I didn't know what will all come to me, but I knew God called me to. So, and I promised God I will stick to it. Whatever it will happen, I will do it. So, and through all the times, when I'm looking back now, I see there were difficult times. Sometimes I thought I will never make it. I will not come out of this situation. That is my end. You know, I will not kiss even my wife. When the plane was going down, I thought I'd be home. But when it came down, I thought that is the end. But at the end, it was not the end. It was another day. What God saved us, and we are still here today. Today, 36 years after He called me to the ministry, I'm still here, and I'm happy, you know, and I feel strong. And sometimes if I read the Bible in this sense, I feel like Caleb when he says, you know, after all the wandering and all the years, I'm strong. Give me more. So that is how I feel. Till the time comes where Jesus said, okay, that's enough. I'm going. I'm ready.
So what do you want the reader to take away?
The reader should be inspired that he can do the same thing if he feels God calls him to do. So he should read it not as only an adventure, but he should read it with faith, and he should read it and get inspired that, you know, a man or a woman, you know, I have a wife and children who went with me. They can do the same thing so that they be strong enough to, with all the circumstances, that they know they will not be alone, that Jesus is always with them.
And you, although you are a man who has been willing to risk your life for the gospel, you're not a wild, crazy, extreme sports junkie, an adrenaline junkie, are you? I mean, you don't see it that way.
No, I see that Jesus called me to do it, you know, and He never overemphasized my ability. So it's always what I can do, I do, and what I can't do, Jesus is helping me. I believe many angels, some prophet told me, you know, he said, I believe that with you are a lot of angels going. You don't see them, but they are there, and you will in the future know about it. What they did, what you couldn't do. And I believe the reader should also be inspired by this, that not only by our strength is possibility, we can do things, but we have to call on the strengths of above.
Yeah, amen. Tell me a little bit about your wife, Gabby.
Yes, my wife is a good wife. You know, we are here together for 36 years because the same time when we got married, we joined CFAN. So that was the honeymoon and the marriage, and the children came along the years. We have 4 children born in many countries of Africa, one in South Africa, another one in Nigeria. The next one, you know, came also in Germany and coming back then to Liberia. So we have a family who has been known Africa and traveled all along. And I see you can live even as a European in every country. You know, I have been in over 40 countries in Africa with my children together, and they all loved it. You know, so I believe my wife is a good supporter of me. I believe she prays a lot, she supports me a lot, she stands behind, and she always encouraged me to do it, to stay with what God called me to do. And God called her also to this ministry so that we stay together. Because it's not possible that only one is called and the other one has another calling. So we are staying together and do the same thing.
I think your wife is an amazing example
Yes.
of what a godly wife should be. And the way that she has been with you all these years, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, Winnie, I think you've heard me say this before, but I'll say it to your face. You and Gabby are my heroes.
Yes.
I really look up to you, and when I see what God is doing in CFAN and the amazing opportunity I have to preach here tonight, I know that I owe a great debt of gratitude to you.
Yeah.
And one day we will stand together with Reinhard, with Gabby, with the rest of the team, with these guys who are behind the cameras right now, Freddie Bonke, Reinhard's son, I believe we'll stand there before God's throne as a team.
Yes.
And hear his well done
Yes.
coming from his lips.
Yes.
So let me say to you, Winnie, on behalf of Reinhard, on behalf of the team, and on behalf of 73 million souls and counting,
Yes.
thank you so much for what
Thank
you've
you.
done for the gospel.
Yes.
I
I
love you,
always
Winnie.
want to say a word. You know, when we went together with Reinhard all these years, what we have seen in his example to go through crisis of faith, through problems, we all saw what is possible if you can trust Jesus. And I think my wife and I learned a lot from him, not to give in to any problem or any trial of the devil, but to keep focus what God called you to do. And that is what I really see in Reinhard's life and see in our lives, what we can learn from him and from you too.
And I've learned that from you as well. Thank you, Winnie. I love you.
Yes. Thank you, Daniel.
You know what I said there to Winfried, I say to all of those of you who are partnering with us through your prayers and through your finances, that one day we are going to stand together before the throne of God. And I believe as a collective group, he is going to say to us, well done, good and faithful servant. You know, I love what Evangelist Bonnke has said about this. He said, you know, when we get to heaven, God isn't going to take the pie and slice it up and see, well, the preacher gets this much of the pie and the technicians get this much of a pie. He said, when we get to heaven, God's going to give each of us the full pie. Because no matter what part we've been called to play, we've done it faithfully, and God is no respecter of persons. Now, maybe as you watch this, and you've had just a little glimpse of what it takes to make these gospel crusades possible, and you realize that those of us who are working on the fields, we are literally risking our lives. Our team that's on the ground there's about 20 some of us that are going month after month after month. We are pouring out our energy and our skills and our lives to see this great harvest of souls. And that's why when I come to you like I'm coming right now, asking you to stand with us as a partner, I'm not asking you to do something that we aren't doing ourselves, but I want for you to have a part in this amazing harvest of souls that's taking place. We have a community of believers here at Christ for All Nations. There are monthly partners that have covenanted to stand with the ministry of Christ for All Nations on a monthly basis through their prayers and through their finances. And these partners literally make the backbone of the ministry of Christ for All Nations. We depend on them. We've come to view them as family. Many of them, I know their names personally, and I've talked to many of you on the phone. And I want to invite you, if you have a stirring in your heart, to be one of these monthly partners. I want to ask you to do that right now. You will receive several things. For one thing, you're going to have a standing invitation to come to our gospel crusades around the world. But today, I want to do something very special for you. If you want to become one of our monthly partners, I want to send you this. It is a poster. It's from Wari in Nigeria. I want to sign one of these and send it to you as our way of saying thank you for becoming a monthly partner in the ministry of Christ for All Nations. Here's how you can join.
To date, Christ for All Nations has seen over 74 million people make decisions for Christ in our gospel campaigns around the world. We are winning millions to Christ and reaping a harvest like never before. You can be a part of this great mission. Every dollar counts and every action matters. Sign up today and become a monthly ministry partner at CfaNTV.
You know, there's been a couple of books that have come out recently from, soldiers and Navy SEALs kind of telling the behind-the-scenes stories of certain adventures that they've faced. And those are good books, but they are nothing compared to the book by one of God's special forces operatives working behind the scenes, who you heard me interview earlier, Winfried Ventland. This man has lived a life with adventures unlike anything I've ever heard before, and I'm the one that encouraged him to write these things down. He wasn't trying to make a name for himself at all, but I said to him, Winnie, what you have lived through is a historic part of the harvest that's taking place today. Honestly, generations from now, people are going to look back at what's happening right now. Since 1987, we have seen almost 74 million people come to Christ. That's over 7,000 people per day for the last 26 consecutive years. And the man behind the scenes who has been one of the linchpins to make it all happen, named Winfried Wendland, has never told this amazing story before, but now we have it. It's called By Life or By Death. When we first got these from the publisher, I was driving down the road and my wife was reading this to me, and I sat there behind the wheel of my car with tears running down my face. I was actually, being kind of macho. I was trying to turn away. I put some sunglasses on so my wife wouldn't see me. But so touching, so moving, so powerful. This is not just a guy working with nuts and bolts in the background. This is a man who has been led by the Spirit of God, rescued by angels. He has been used by God to lead people to the Lord as he traveled across the African continent with our crusade equipment. And he has been instrumental in bringing about one of the greatest harvests of souls in the history of mankind. I want to send this book to you today for your gift of any amount. We're doing it that way because I really want to get this into your hands. It's not about the money. Of course, we need to cover our costs as well. But for your gift of any amount today, I'm going to send this right out to you, and I know that you're going to be blessed. And also, what we did is we sat down with Winfried and with Reinhard Bonnke, with their wives, and with some of the other behind-the-scenes folks, and I had them tell their stories in sort of a panel discussion, and we created this DVD called Up Close and Personal. It's stories from behind the scenes of their lives. And I want to send this to you as well if you're able to give a gift of at least $40 to help us with this ongoing work of salvation in the ministry of Christ for all nations. So again, Winfried's book, By Life or By Death, for your gift of any amount, and the book with the DVD set for your gift of at least $40 or more. But let me just say to you, those of you that have been standing with us, thank you so much. We love you and we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us on today's broadcast. And don't forget, we'll be back again next week on this same channel at the same time. I look forward to seeing you there. Until then, God bless you. Bye-bye.
It is the untold story behind the greatest harvest of souls ever recorded. Responsible for delivering Christ for All Nations critical crusade equipment for over 30 years in the most hostile terrain imaginable, Winfried Wendland has been shipwrecked, dragged to the bottom of a crocodile-infested river, caught in the crossfire between rebel armies, escaped from the hands of terrorists, robbers, child soldiers, and thugs, contracted malaria nearly 24 times, and 12 times nearly killed for the gospel. Now, experience this epic journey from Cape Town to Cairo through the eyes of the unknown man who is at the center of one of the greatest adventures in church history. For your gift of any amount, we want to send you a copy of By Life or By Death today. And for your gift of $40 or more, we will also send you our 2-part DVD set, Up Close and Personal. You will see powerful personal stories from Reinhard Bonnke and the team as they risked everything for the sake of the gospel.
To learn more about the mission and ministry of Christ for all nations, please visit our website. You can write to us at CFAN, P.O. Box 590356, Orlando, Florida 32859. Visit our prayer site to share a prayer request or testimony. Thank you for helping win millions to Christ, one soul at a time.
The preceding program has been made possible by the friends and partners of Christ for All Nations.